Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Leading by Innovation National Call, hosted by Andrew Falconer. My name is Ashley, and I'm your event manager. During the presentation, your lines will remain on listen only. If you do require assistance at any time, please key star then 0, and a coordinator will be happy to assist you. I'd like to advise all parties this conference is being recorded. Now I'd like to hand over to Andrew. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Ashley, and good afternoon to everyone on today's call. My name, as Ashley said, is Andrew Falconer, and I'm Regional Director for Business Direct at Clydesdale and Yorkshire Banks, and I'll be hosting today's call. So I'm delighted to say that the interest in this national call has been significant, and my thanks to those around the country who have joined us as part of our Business Week activities to talk today on the subject of leading by innovation. So the call is scheduled today for around an hour, and I'm delighted to be joined on this call by Peter Sayburn, who is the CEO of a company called Market Gravity. So I'll give Pete a proper introduction shortly, but before I do that, there are a couple of areas I'd like to cover off. So firstly, I'd like to touch on briefly just what is Business Week. Secondly, why the theme on innovation, and what do we find interest around innovation? And thirdly, where do Pete and Market Gravity fit into that puzzle? So we'll talk about all three of those. So firstly, what is Business Week? Well, this week, Clydesdale and Yorkshire Bank are hosting over 200 customer-focused events across the UK in our business and private banking centres, in our retail branches, and in a number of other venues around the UK. And this week for us is about inspiring business, and that's the theme of this week of activities. It's about helping to inspire businesses to grow and develop, but also how are we inspired by business, which in turn enables us to focus on how we can grow and develop our own business to best meet our customer needs. So the week of events, seminars and customer visits this week will cover a wide variety of topics, from sharing our sector expertise in certain areas, to supporting entrepreneurialism, to focusing on customer service, and then some of the usual business topics, such as things like exporting and buying, or maybe buying and selling a business. All disciplines that will help businesses expand, develop growth strategies, and ultimately build their own long-term success and prosperity. So many of these events this week, like today's event, hopefully will enable business owners to connect with each other, sharing many of their ideas and their experiences. And for me, sometimes just hearing about the challenges and successes of another business owner can be just what you need for motivation and inspiration. And for our bank particularly, we genuinely recognise that there is more to banking than simply lending money and taking deposits. We are really keen to support a dialogue with business on growing and developing our SME sector together. So secondly, the theme of innovation, it's always a curious one, and it certainly has aroused some interest today. But just to put it in context, at Clydesdale and Yorkshire Bank, we help around 250 new start-up businesses get off the ground every week. And as part of that process, we consistently talk to business owners, who are endeavouring to bring their own little slice of innovation, big or small, to the marketplace. And it's that kind of creativity and inventiveness that we are really keen to support. And as a measure of that support, in the last 2 weeks we've launched, the market-leading offer for start-up and switcher businesses of 25 months free banking. Really during that early and often challenging period as they get their business, on its own 2 feet. So thirdly then, why Market Gravity and Pete Sayburn? Well, there are two main reasons I think why Market Gravity are well qualified to talk to us today and are very relevant to the conversation. One, and most importantly, not least because they are a small business themselves. And two, innovation is their business. It's not something they think about doing. It's fundamentally what they do. And I think you'll hear a version of that from Pete today. And to give you an example of that, my business is like many others around the UK, and at times needs to take counsel from companies that can challenge the norm and encourage and foster some fresh thinking on what we're good at and how we can bring compelling propositions to the market that genuinely meet customer needs. So in our example, we partnered with Market Gravity round about a year ago now, and our intention was quite simple. Our intention was to bring something new, fresh and different to the business banking market. And we're currently engaged with Market Gravity on bringing a new customer proposition together, which we genuinely believe offers a real chance to move into a new space and a different space than we've been previously. This is not a lick of paint on an old idea, but rather it's new ground, for a changing business environment that recognises that customer needs are absolutely changing, and we seek to offer something quite different. So Pete and his company have really helped us to find our own creative mojo, and in the search for that innovation, we went back to basics in a number of ways, and we've also went forward into the future, with the aim of finding something genuinely different. So more to come on that later this year. But let me move to Peter Sayburn and bring Pete into the discussion. He is a man of many talents. He was the co-founder of Market Gravity in 2009. His work with the organisation has spanned a number of industry sectors, including financial services, but also retail, telecoms and the energy sector. But amongst his other talents, he also co-wrote the book Defying Gravity, Adventures of a Corporate Entrepreneur. So Pete, from what I know, is very insightful and thought-provoking, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the time invested today. So listen, without further ado, let me hand over to Peter Sayburn. Pete.
Thanks very much, Andrew, and many thanks for joining the call this afternoon. My name is Peter Sayburn from Market Gravity. I'm going to start, as Andrew suggested, by introducing our company a little bit, tell you about Market Gravity, and then I'm going to go on to talk about the role of innovation here, and hopefully plenty of that will be relevant to your companies as well. And I'll go on to share some of my views on innovation success and some of the principles of success and what you can do to ensure that your company remains as agile and innovative as possible. And then we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A, so if you do think of questions during the conversation over the next sort of 20 minutes or so, log those questions and we can go to Q&A towards the end of the session. So like Andrew, I always like hearing about other people's companies too, and so I make no excuse for kicking off by talking about my favourite subject, which is Market Gravity itself. There's a risk that I might go on a bit here, so Andrew, step in if things go on too far. But in short, Market Gravity is an innovation company. We're a proposition design consultancy. So what does that mean? We design new products, we design new services, primarily for big established companies. So these are companies like Barclaycard, like Boots, The Chemist, British Gas, Scottish Gas, and Visa. They're big multinational organisations, and I'm very pleased to say, of course, Clydesdale and Yorkshire Bank itself, our host for the programme. I'd like to thank them for the introduction this afternoon. So we design new products and services. We help large businesses to get new products to market, and it tends to be those new products that the company hasn't launched before that we get involved in. They're often new digital services, so a lot of moving services and moving some of the channels online. They're often new ventures even, and things that need a little bit of external help and the need to move fast in what can be a traditionally relatively slow-moving industry. So there's two reasons really to recap on why Andrew and the team asked me to talk this afternoon. One is we are an SME ourselves. We're a fast-growing business. We're still relatively small, certainly compared with our customers. And we have to embrace innovation to continue to be successful and to compete. And the second one, quite rightly, is that we're in the business of innovation. We get paid to help other companies innovate, and therefore, hopefully, some of the experience that we can share this afternoon will be valuable to your companies. Final thing I may be able to touch on is we're a tiny company relative to our customers. So I'll touch on some of the benefits of that, but also some of the challenges and problems of working on innovation initiatives with very large established players. So let's move on and talk about Market Gravity, the company. So we set the business up in 2009. So many of you will remember that, fairly lean times for business, a year or two into the recession. So we started with a very small team, in fact just two of us. And in 6 years we've grown MG to an international business. We now have over 50 members of our team in 3 different locations, in London, in Edinburgh, and last year we also opened our 3rd office in New York, and we're now trying to grow a North America business on the back of our success in the UK. Market Gravity was founded on the belief that business actually has the potential to make a very positive and a big impact on the world around us. And we knew that there were loads of great ideas in every single company out there, and we loved the impact and the success that business can have when they get it right. But we also saw how difficult it is to take a new idea to market, and a new idea is very vulnerable to the challenges that big and small companies have. So we decided that a specialist company that could help unleash this innovation capacity and could work with big companies would be in great demand, and that has been our focus ever since. So we're very clear on our mission, which is to unlock and unleash great ideas from within established businesses. So how does that work? Well, we're a project-based business. We get paid a fee to work with companies to help design a new product and a new service and get it ready for market launch. So in part we are a consultancy, but we're also a research company, and we're also a design agency. And one big difference that we bring to those 3 disciplines, I suppose, is entrepreneurship. We completely buy into the values of entrepreneurialism and entrepreneurship, and we like to see new things launched into the market. So those project teams, we create effectively a little startup within the big company, and we assemble a small team from our own colleagues, but also from our client companies and often their partners. We treat it like a startup business, and our projects result in a prototype of this new product or service and a compelling business case to get that company to buy into the proposal and want to take the new initiative to market. So that's a quick overview of Market Gravity as a company. That's what we do. Happy to elaborate further on the Q&A, but I'll move on. And now let's talk a little bit about innovation itself, and understand maybe why it's important and what is it anyway. It's an overused term, but I believe it's absolutely vital to every business and to society as a whole. And by harnessing that creative side inside our companies, we've got the potential to make a big difference and make everyone's lives better. And I think innovation is the combination of both the creative but also the execution. It's about implementation as much as it is about creativity. And it has to be applied to a problem. Critically, that problem has to be linked to some business value. So for me, it's much bigger than just an idea or a new piece of technology. Innovation is about putting ideas into practice and really making an impact on the world around you. And every company is hiding hundreds of ideas, but it's hard. It's really difficult to harness those ideas and get them out to market. And innovation needs room. It needs space to iterate, to experiment. And there's a lot of learning through trial and error. And that's really difficult to do at the same time as dealing with all of the different day-to-day priorities in your company. It's really difficult to do alongside those process improvements that you need to make, or completing some of your business as usual activities and looking after your customers every day. But I'm convinced, and hopefully others join me in that view, that it is worth it, and that innovation, when well applied, is the only real path to enduring business success. So sustainable business success requires innovation in order to stay relevant for your customers, to stay one step ahead of your competitors. You have to do new things, and you have to do things better. So one final point on that, if you're still slightly unsure of the importance of innovation, is that innovative companies can also command what's called an innovation premium in the stock market. So this is due to the expectation that they're going to continue to build earnings and be valuable businesses. And we see that with some of the biggest companies like Apple, like Uber. They're actually worth a lot more than the equivalent companies who maybe have a single service and don't inspire the market that they're going to continue to evolve. So if you're ever planning to raise finance, or if you're planning to sell your company at some point, then innovation premium could actually result in a higher market value for your company. So innovation in the market gravity story, what role does that play? And we believe innovation is critical to our own success as a business. So we've evolved the methods that we use, how we go about doing our projects with clients, the skills that we've built within our team, and the composition of our team itself has evolved quite a bit over the last couple of years in order to stay ahead of our competition. So when we started, we didn't have anything like the customer insight capability or the digital development and design capability that we now have in-house. So for example, in customer insight, we use things like box pops, so customer interviews captured on their smartphones for a really quick way to validate a concept or capture insight around a particular topic. You know, you can post a question online to a panel of customers that fit your target, and within a few hours you get a little video of each of them talking about this problem, what they think of an idea, or whether they like something. And that's so much faster and easier than traditional market research. So that's just one example on the insight side. But we've also created the capacity in-house to design and create digital and also physical prototypes of the new product or service that we're planning to launch early on in the process. It brings the idea to life and it helps people to buy into the vision of what we're trying to do here. And it simulates also the real customer experience long before you've resolved all of the organisational, operational challenges of getting that to market. So we didn't take that kind of approach in the early days. They're examples of innovation in our own business, and you don't find those sorts of approaches in the typical management consultancies, as you can imagine. So innovation is certainly important to us, but what does it mean and what could it mean in your business? So we've identified some consistent characteristics or some principles for great innovation from first-hand experience, and we've created this set of principles, and we're actually publishing something later in the week with United Business Media, so we're getting a bit of a preview and a bit of a sneaky peek at some of those principles before we actually hit the presses. And you can use these principles yourself to challenge your thinking and maybe say, well, am I or are we in our company really following those kind of principles, and are there things that we could do that maybe we've not done so far. So I'm going to introduce those principles, talk through, there's only 6 of them, so relatively small, and maybe we can talk about some of how they're applied in your company on the Q&A session. So the first principle for innovation is that of purpose. It's about that single-minded objective or goal. And so it's a way of thinking, everybody knows what we stand for. Everybody knows what we're working towards, and everyone knows why. And so it's a good thing to ask yourself the question about your own organisation. Is that purpose really clear? Sometimes the what you do is clear, is why you're doing it really clear to your team, and is your innovation activity directed in line with that purpose? And businesses that are great at innovation know why they're doing it. They're confident in the long-term mission, and they align the values and their colleagues' activities around a shared strategy for success. So, a great example, think about something like Virgin Galactic. It's a massive mission that they're on, a big purpose to introduce a new form of space travel. Everybody gets behind it, and it's not without risks, as we know from the challenges that they've had over the last year or two. Another example in India is Tata, the engineering company, have got this mission to develop a $1,000 car and bring something to market that can just change the lives of millions of people in that country. So think about the purpose of your business and whether some of your innovation activities are aligned with that purpose. The second one is leadership. And this is all about creating the right conditions for innovation. So creating and maintaining the best conditions for innovation. And from a leadership perspective, often that means inspiring, it means challenging, but it also means protecting a new initiative sometimes. And that visible executive sponsorship is really key to successful innovation in businesses of all sizes. And that leadership team needs to commit and provide that kind of consistent, clear communication on the role of innovation within the business through your own actions. A nice example of this one that I often use is BT. BT turned from what was an dusty old phone company over a number of years into what is a pretty progressive media company. They're bidding with Sky Sports for the football rights, something that they would never do in the past. And it was down to the leadership team who persisted with that vision of becoming a media and communications company over a decade, when it could easily have lost focus and they could have been stuck back in the role of providing the infrastructure only. Amazon's another great example where their willingness to replace, they were leaders in bookselling, but they were very willing to replace that market by selling Kindle and e-books, and they actually replaced the physical book market, but they were leaders in the new market. And that's a bold leadership activity, to be able to replace your own market with a new product or service. So purpose and leadership are the first two. The third one is around capability. And the innovators create teams of diverse disciplines and diverse skills, bringing disciplines together to form productive teams with a clear structure and some method to that. And we often talk about innovation as a process or as a structure, and it sounds like an oxymoron, but you've got to put a bit of purpose, a bit of structure around innovation activities for them to be successful. A successful innovation initiative often requires quite a small, focused, very motivated team with the autonomy to make it happen and the right kind of skills and experience in that team, the right attitude, and really results focused. And a big company that does that well is Apple again. So they combine great hardware and software design with a really good understanding of human behaviour and how we as individuals like to go about doing things. And they simplify things and make them more accessible for mass market use. So that's the third one around capability, your ability to bring together disciplines, science, philosophy, art, teamwork into the same environment. The fourth one is collaboration. Talk a lot about collaboration in innovation. And this is really about valuing others' ideas. It's about sharing as well as protecting, and it's about learning from experience. So, our culture supports sharing and learning is the principle here. We value the expertise and the experience of other organisations. So rather than being secretive and protective about your secrets and your way of doing things, innovative businesses actually are quite willing to share often, and they validate ideas early on with employees or with partners, sometimes with their customers, and they know they can't do everything themselves. So they're willing to enter into partnerships and alliances much more easily. And Philips, the consumer electronics company, is really good at that. Bringing small companies, bringing technology partners, combining that with their own capabilities in order to get new services to market. And that's become part of their culture of collaboration, whereas in the past they were very much an R&D-led scientific company that thought that they could do everything themselves. So the fifth principle of innovation is competitive advantage, and this is all about playing to your strengths. So the principle is we make the most of our company's scale and our company's assets. And it's particularly important for big companies, but I think it applies to any company. A successful innovator takes advantage of the fact that they're part of an established business, and it gives them an inherent advantage over a pure startup who maybe has just an idea and maybe a bit of intellectual property. And it enables them to have greater impact more quickly. So if you think about the plethora of services and new products and new features that, say, Google or Facebook have brought to market in the last 18 months, it's built on their established core business. It's enabled them to get into their new services. So the question to ask yourself is, well, what is it that we have which is an inherent advantage that we can then build upon? So in Andrew's introduction, we talked about Clydesdale Yorkshire Bank being willing to take on new ways of working. I think he called it the creative mojo. I love the expression. But this is also about understanding what the bank is really good at, what your customers love about you, and how can you build upon those things, as well as bring new things to market. So really the willingness to change is important, but the recognition that you have an inherent advantage in your company, and others would be very envious of that advantage, is an important key to success as well. And then the sixth principle in here, and I'm sure that all startup businesses have this, and most small businesses still have this, is obsession around your customer and focus on your customer and understanding who they are, what makes them tick, and what needs they have. So being obsessive about our customers, they drive our innovation agenda, is the principle here. And innovative businesses know that while they may not be able to articulate it, every great idea addresses a real customer problem. So the key here is to focus not just on your idea, but focus on the customer problem that you're trying to solve. Okay, so focus on the customer problem, not just the idea. So if we think about some of the online new examples like Uber or like Amazon, they created million-dollar businesses just by giving consumers greater confidence. Sometimes in markets that we had no idea that they actually needed. They weren't that inconvenient to begin with, but they've taken it just that one step further. So obsessive customer focus is the sixth principle for successful innovation. And my final piece of advice, and this I guess is moving back into small, medium-sized business mode, is move fast. So speed. Speed is the best protection about every cause of something we call innovation death. The things that can stop an innovation from being successful, things that stifle it in its tracks. Speed is the best protection against that, and action beats strategy every single time. So I'm sure that many of you can relate to the fact that you don't regret what you did badly in business, but you may regret what you didn't try to do in business. And so my advice would be absolutely get out there and act, move quickly. It's also where SMEs have the upper hand on corporates. So your ability to act fast and move with purpose fast gives you an upper hand on some of the more established businesses that take a long time to make a decision, take a long time to get investment approved. So that concludes the presentation part of my talk today. I hope that you can relate to some of the points that I've raised. I hope some of this is relevant to your business. I wish you all every success. Best of luck with your own companies. I'm going to hand back to Andrew now, and I think we're going to summarise a little bit, but also open up the floor for some more questions, and it'd be great to hear your own experiences, and happy to take any questions from the audience.
Okay, well listen, thanks Pete, that was excellent, right on the money, and I think lots for us to reflect on in the Q&A, and be delighted to take any questions that anyone on the call has, as we move into the Q&A shortly. So, I think first and foremost for myself, just a couple of points that I think come out of your presentation there, Pete, and the way you talk about your business. First and foremost for me is that there's a clear confidence that you have in your own company's capabilities. I think it comes through loud and clear in the dialogue, and I can hear in your voice the commitment and the pride you've got in the business you've got around you, and I see that in action in our organisation. So great to hear that. But I think a couple of other things, and just on the main theme on innovation, and a couple of the points that you touched on, which I think really resonate with me and our business as we pursue the kind of innovation that you talk about. And the first one was, you touched on, Pete, how do businesses embrace innovation? And I think it can be very easy to fall into the trap of using that word innovation and then automatically jump into companies like Apple and Google and Amazon and companies of that scale. You think through the iPad, the iPod, the iWatch, the whatever. These companies have, it's now inbred in their DNA that innovation's where it's at. But I guess it's not mutually exclusive, right? We all have the mandate to get involved in that kind of innovation, and it's just that these companies have developed, from your feedback, Pete, a kind of way of working where it becomes part of what they do, not something they also think about doing on a Tuesday or a Thursday. This is something that takes, it sounds like, a bit of commitment, a bit of focus, and a wee bit of belief in yourself and your organisation. And then the second thing from what you were saying, Pete, that again has a resonance with me is, it can be often really difficult to bring new ideas to a market, and maybe this does come back to the confidence point, but part of the reason why we've partnered with your company, Market Gravity, is not necessarily because we don't know what we want to do. We're very clear on that, and we knew the space that we wanted to play in. But very often, the point you made and you touched on around the speed of bringing things to market, the speed of thinking and the speed of deployment, for me, that's where the magic can happen, because that's where, if we get into a creative space, if we have a driven agenda and we're very focused on an outcome, we can work much faster than we ordinarily would just in our own normal business life. There was always a phrase at times in banking that it was a world, blighted by rampant, I think they called it rampant incrementalism. We're trying to break out of that mold just now, and with your help, I think we're going to achieve that. So it's just resonating back on that difficulty in bringing new ideas into the market. I think that'll resonate with a lot of people on the call today. And then later on, you touched on Virgin, and they're at the opposite end of that spectrum with confidence and innovation. They're a business that's willing to try different things and to experiment. They've got themselves very comfortable living life on the edge of wherever they are, and hopefully, in their view, that market will develop, it'll mature, and it'll move back into the centre at some point. But I do wonder sometimes whether that's the difference between large and small businesses, that the risks in a large business can be offset or can be waylaid by the other normal business activities you've got on. For many small businesses, it can be really difficult to find that space for innovation, and it can be difficult to find time for that creativity that you aspire to and you want it. And again, that I think does take that commitment, focus, and belief that you touched on, Pete, in your voiceover. So, listen, those were just a few of my takeouts from the discussion there. Very, very insightful, and I'd love to take a chance now to open the call up to questions. And Ashley, if I come back to you, can you advise participants how to ask a question on the call?
Ladies and gentlemen, your question and answer session will now begin. If you do wish to ask a question, please ensure that your line is not on mute. Key star then 1 on your telephone, record your name, then press the hash key. If you then decide to withdraw your question, simply key star then 2. So just to remind you, if you wish to ask a question, please ensure your line is not on mute. Key star then 1 on your telephone, record your name, then press the hash key.
Okay, so listen, thanks Ashley for that. While we're waiting on a participant to ask a question, Pete, maybe I can kick us off with just one question. So, in your voiceover, you talked about as a small business working with a number of large businesses across the UK, and really helping them to find innovation in a number of ways. So, can I ask how did you develop a positive relationship with those corporate customers, and are there any experiences you'd be happy to share today?
Okay, yeah, good one, Andrew. So, someone once told me that business is a bit like boxing, that the best matches are within similar weights, and I think this is quite difficult, that whole working together with big and small companies, and I think there's lots of people trying it, and it is difficult, and the first thing is to understand each other. So I think there are people in big businesses who are absolutely committed to working with the SME community, sometimes as part of a procurement method, but more often just because we have a lot to bring for that big company. And therefore understanding each other is critical. Two good examples of that would be from a cash flow and payment side, and I know as a business and commercial bank you'll understand this. Big companies can have really punitive terms for their suppliers, and if you're a small business, you can't afford to be paid 90 days late or 90 days after invoicing. So sometimes you need to get closer to smaller businesses. I know that Clydesdale and some of the other banks are very good at that because they understand us. But it works the other way around too. So when we're working for large companies, we have to understand the governance processes that they need to go through in order to get things approved. It's in a funny situation because in many ways we're trying to challenge those processes and say move faster and try things out first. It's not as risky as you think. But we do need to recognise and respect that's how decisions get made at the moment. And therefore working with them rather than always kind of battling the status quo. This isn't a maverick game. Innovation in big companies, you can't be out on your own. You need to take people with you. So my advice would be, first up, understand each other. Find a really productive area to start. So one area of the business that maybe values what your service or your product is, and develop a bit of a reputation and a relationship. And once you've developed that relationship, you will get introduced to others in that company, and hopefully that becomes a major account or a major source of income for the smaller business. And it's also a great forum for sharing for the larger business. Smaller businesses bring a lot of new insights. They bring great motivation, great cultural benefits to larger organisations. And as long as you recognise each other's strengths, and as long as you respect each other's need to work in a certain way, it can be very productive, and we've certainly experienced that ourselves.
Okay, listen, thanks for that, Pete. Ashley, is there any questions that we've got in the queue?
We do have a question on the audio, but there appears to be no name recorded for this question. Caller, if you'd like to, please star then 1, record your name, and then press the hash key again so we can get you through to the question line.
Okay, any other questions in the queue just now, Ashley?
We do have some questions waiting, but none of them have recorded their name. If you have asked a question, could you please speak now and ask your question to make sure if your line is open?
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello, my name's Alan Hayes.
Hi, Alan.
Yeah, I'm 63 years of age. I've designed a product which is ready to manufacture in China. A prototype's been done. I've spent 9 years of research and marketing, etc., so I know the product inside out. It's not a digital product, it's a practical garden tool. Has MG got any experience in that kind of field?
Hi, Alan, and good to hear about your resilience, if nothing else. It sounds like
definitely resilience.
It's taken an awful lot of effort to get where it is already, I can imagine.
Yes, it has. Certainly has. A lot of hard work, a lot of ups and a lot of downs.
I can imagine. Our own experience, less so in that field. So in the physical products, MG doesn't get so much involved as the services and the digital products. So we don't directly have so much experience of that. The kind of options, I suppose, to look at, and this can be very encouraging at some points, but it also can be quite disparaging, is to look at some of the corporate channels to market and understand, are there a few individuals in those big established garden centres or those big product companies who actually see the value in what you're trying to do, and can you bring your thinking into and collaborate more closely with them? I can imagine that the go-it-alone route to actually get that product to market could be very challenging. Having said that, it's easier now than it ever was before to go direct to market if you do have a product. So they're the two angles that I would suggest. But in terms of our own first-hand experience, physical products in that area of the market isn't something I would claim any expertise. So I'm going to reserve not to give you direct advice on that one.
Okay then. Thanks for that. Cheers.
Thanks, Alan. Okay, Ashley, any other questions in the queue?
We do have another question waiting. Your next question comes from the line of
John Campbell.
You're now live in the call. Please go ahead.
Hi, John.
Thank you. Pete, thanks very much for an interesting and informative presentation, first of all. Found it very interesting. I wonder if you could describe the culture of innovation within your own organisation and perhaps any initiatives that you found particularly successful.
Absolutely, yeah. Hi, John. Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, first up is we've got a great team. We've got a brilliant team of people, and I'm proud of everything they do every day. And I hope, although I probably don't tell them often enough, that's how I feel about it. So from a cultural perspective, it's something that we've done deliberately from day one. I mean, it's a people business. If the guys don't stay, if they don't develop skills, if they're not inspired every single day, then we don't have a product. We haven't got much else, to be honest. There's a bit of IP in our method, but it's actually a people business. So you're spot on in guessing that culture is one of the main things. There's a few initiatives. I mean, I'll give you some examples. We have something called Duracell Days, and that is to recharge your batteries. So it's pretty tough working on these projects. Sometimes you're working all hours, often away from home, and in between phases of projects, you often just need to recharge your batteries. Take a day off, go walk on the beach, go for a bike ride, go to the park, whatever. So people get 4 days a year, so one every quarter. Where it's not a holiday, and it's not a training day, it's just time off to be able to do whatever you want and recharge your batteries. And that kind of Duracell Day concept has been really well received because it's flexible and it's recognition that actually this is a pretty tough job that the guys do every day, and so it gives them a bit of time back. So that's one example. What else do? We have a profit share scheme, which is important too. So we genuinely want to share in the successes of the business, and those who earn the profit in the company share the profit in the company. So we do that on either a quarterly or a 6-monthly basis, where we'll put a proportion of the net profits of the company into a pool, and that will get shared among the team. And it's become part of the remuneration scheme there. So that kind of thing has a very direct impact between the commercial success and also the cost. So people recognise that when we spend money on something, they question it. And that's quite an interesting one too for a business owner, to have someone question the decisions you made around the costs, because actually they're more interested in the profit as well. So that one's important. The other thing we do is maintain that link between big companies and small companies. So we do something called Meet the Entrepreneur, where small companies will come in on a Friday lunchtime. Sometimes we'll get sandwiches in, we get drinks in, and they can share some problems, and our team will kind of share their experiences from other sectors of the market, and we'll kick it around together. Those sort of things are brilliant because they keep you very fresh, they give you a variety, and it's always fascinating to take on a challenge in someone else's business as well as your own. So a whole range of different things we do, John. The culture's massive. I mean, last month we had an end-of-year event, and all 53 of the team members from wherever they worked in the world convened in Edinburgh. We did a bit of an apprentice-style challenge with some local businesses there. We had a big night out, as you can imagine, afterwards, and that part of it, the team spirit and the culture is really important to us. So a whole range of initiatives. Certainly believe it to be one of the keys to success.
Thank you very much indeed, Pete. I'm sure everyone on the call likes the idea of a time-out of the business. But thank you very much indeed for answering that for me.
Thanks, John. Thank you. Over to the next caller.
Thank you for your question. Your next question, we don't appear to have a name recorded for the question, so caller, could you please state your name if you have dialed in to ask a question? Your line is now open. Please go ahead.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi. My name's Emma. Hi, Pete. Hi, Andrew. You mentioned earlier about the importance of getting to customers, and I think for a small business that's quite difficult because quite often for market research and things there's quite a lot of costs involved in that. And I just wondered if you had some experience of how small businesses can get to their customers.
Yeah, I agree with you. Hi, Emma. I think that's absolutely critical. If we're talking about new product development or new service development, as well as improving the experience for existing customers, you've got to get them involved. And more than just research, we'd advocate co-designing, even co-creating that product or service with them. So a couple of different things that we do, and it does vary in cost. The principles are the same though, even if you spend a bit less money on it. It's taking time with your customers in their own natural environment. So I hate the idea of dragging someone across town, sitting them in an uncomfortable meeting room behind a pane of glass, where people sit behind there watching them as they're asked stilted questions by somebody that they've never met before, in front of a group of other people that they've never met before, so they can't be honest. And I just don't think it works. So my suggestion would be to, if you're in the consumer business, you go to wherever your customers are. If it's food and drink, you're in the supermarkets, in the bars. If it's a sporting thing, you're at the events, in the stores, that kind of thing. And just spend time talking to. And many of us would have started business, that's where it's come from. It's been a kind of a community of people who have a common interest that you build a business around. So I certainly advocate the just going and spending time with them. If it's B2B, it's a little bit harder, and I think some of the events and the conferences, again, they can be a bit stilted if you don't manage to talk to people in their own environment. So I would be inviting myself in and saying, can I come and talk to you? Most people are very warm and receptive when a company asks them their opinion about something and is genuine in wanting to make their product or service better. So being quite proactive, being a little bit cheeky sometimes, inviting yourself to places where your customers hang out, talking to them, and then inviting them to get involved in designing a better way of doing things for your business, we found really productive. And you can do it yourself. You don't need an agency. If you use an agency, you need to be clear on their role. We'd often use a third party for targeting, maybe. We needed a particular type of customer and wanted to access them. The Vox Pop Me type initiative that I talked about there is a really good way of getting snippets of feedback. You don't get the depth that you get in a conversation, so I'd always encourage you to sit down and actually chat with your consumers in their native environment. But you can get quite a lot through those little video Vox Pops, and we use it when we need to take it up the line to the management team in the bigger companies, because there's nothing like seeing your own customers telling you what they want to motivate the senior management, and sometimes they're a little bit distant from the customers to be able to see it firsthand. So I hope that helps them. There's a range of different things, but definitely spending time with your customers is the key to this, and inviting them to get involved.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thanks for that, Pete, and thanks, Emma. Ashley, is there any other calls on the line?
There are no more questions waiting at this time.
Okay, well, listen, it's just going to attend to. I'll give it one more minute in case we have any more questions today.
Ladies and gentlemen, just to remind you, if you do wish to ask a question, please key star then 1 on your telephone, record your name, then press the hash key.
So, Pete, I was going to comment there actually on the last question from Emma. One of the things that our company's been working together on recently is how do we really accelerate that level of customer feedback, because I think, that in many organisations there's some fairly standard ways of receiving customer feedback and customer satisfaction measures, and often I think we found recently that it didn't offer us enough depth or enough colour to kind of show us the kind of innovation that was really looked for from our customers and the kind of products and services they really wanted. So, I think one of my examples would be that working with your company, we've really accelerated the amount of customer feedback we're now getting, and in different settings and different contexts, to try and make sure that we'll get as much input as possible to the development cycle, and also making sure that our innovation stays on track. We don't kind of run away with ourselves into a dark corner somewhere, and it doesn't work. So, that for me, that's been really powerful recently, I have to say.
And that's absolutely key to success there, Andrew, and not just to do it at the beginning, because I think that's something that maybe companies often do, is a bit of research up front. Learn enough to get started, and then assume that nothing changes from there. But this is an ongoing process, so getting customer insight throughout the MPD or the new product development cycle is key. Because sometimes customers don't know what they want until you put something in front of you, and then improve it and enhance it, and something won't work and you replace it with a better feature. And so customer input to the innovation approach is an ongoing and an iterative process, and I'm pleased that that's been useful within Clydesdale Yorkshire Bank. It's certainly something that we see as critical to success. It doesn't stop just that once the first bit of research is done. And the other thing is, as a bank, you have a particular role that you can play. You have a big group of customers who are more than willing to get involved, because they know they're going to benefit from this as well. So by bringing new services to market, getting new customers involved benefits them in the long run, and they feel a real sense of ownership for it. So I think it's a good way of building loyalty for your own customer base too.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Ashley, one last check round for any more questions.
We do have a question waiting on the line. Your next question comes from the line of
Hazel Boyd.
You're now live in the call. Please go ahead.
Hello, I was wanting to ask, when you're working with your clients, how do you get people to think more creatively when it's not maybe in their nature or their normal thing that they do in the course of their day?
Yeah, that's a great one. Thanks for that question. Well, we try and stimulate it very consciously. So all of us respond to stimulus in different ways, and some people come up with great ideas at random moments when their mind is just sort of freewheeling, and other people need a very specific question or a bit of stimulus. So as part of the market gravity method, we've developed maybe something like 20 different specific techniques, which some of them happen in workshops, some of them happen when you're out and about on your own, but they stimulate that kind of thinking. So I'll give you a couple of examples. There's one which is a fantastic technique we've used for years, which is called breaking assumptions. And what you do is you consciously write down, on a big bit of paper or a post-it note, you list out all those big assumptions that currently govern your company or your business, or they're the things that you think are true. And they kind of guide what you do every day. But then you give yourself the permission to say, well, actually, I'm going to cross that one out. I'm going to contradict it completely. And if that was the case, where would it take me? And then suddenly you open up a whole new thing. So you say to a small business bank, we make money through fees and charges. Right, Andrew? Make money through fees and charges, and then you contradict yourself and you say, well, actually, imagine they were banned. You couldn't take any fees and you couldn't make any charges. What would you do? It prompts a reaction. Now, that idea that comes out of that may be completely infeasible, or it could be fantastic, but it's prompted a reaction. So that would be one example of kind of the breaking assumptions or challenging assumptions. The other one would be a really nice technique to do with mapping out what your current customers' experiences of your service, and then looking through their eyes as to what's wrong with it. So you're almost critiquing your own offering and your own experience through their eyes. So nothing to do with what you're doing as a business, but thinking about purely the experience that your customer has. And then go through it through their own eyes and say, well, actually, which bits of that would I not like? Or which bits of it do they probably not like, and they told us so? And then hook into it every single point of that and see what you could do to make it better. So you're almost turning those problems on the head and turning them into something optimistic and saying, if we were launching a new business tomorrow, how would it work? And it's often helpful to get outside of your own company's constraints to do that. So we use another technique called challenger brands. And if you think of a challenger brand, what's that? It's Innocent Smoothies, it's Virgin, it's new companies that have come to market and do something completely different. And if you think through their eyes, and you almost say, well, what would Richard Branson do if he was to launch into this market? It opens your mind to lots of other things that maybe you wouldn't do because you know too much about your own market and your own company. So creative thinking is one part of the innovation sort of equation. It's an important one. Execution is more important, but that kind of sparking ideas is brilliant. And those conversations with customers that I talked about when Emma asked her question is also a key there. You don't need to necessarily come up with all the creative ideas yourself. Your customers are willing to do it. Your partners are willing to do it. And even other members of your team who you may not have thought of as being particularly creative have got a lot of the answers to some of those challenges.
Okay, thanks, Pete. And listen, thanks, Hazel, for that question. A good one. I think that's probably all we've got time for today. So probably just leaves me to wrap up today's call. From a personal point of view, I mean, I've really enjoyed Pete's honest views and his take on how to win in business. I think it's very refreshing, and I knew he'd bring great value to today's call. From me, Pete, again, thanks for your time today, because I know it's precious. I really appreciate you committing the time to join us on today's call. The call will be available on replay facilities online on our CBYD website if you require that. And hopefully you find it was an interesting call and it was time well invested today. So that's all for today, and again, many thanks for your time today.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes your conference call for today. You may now disconnect. Thank you for joining and have a good day.